The Outlanders Journey. Tier 1, Level 1. Chapter 14. Bach, you don't know what to think of these strangers. You didn't think you'd meet the people that Ernog told you about, the ones who infected the orcs with a lethal disease. For that reason alone, you despise them. You can feel your ire simmering. You're a few feet behind Laurel, who's whispering into Ernog's ear. Ernog waves him away and steps up to the strangers, pulling out rope to tie them up. The two direwolves are howling in the distance to call everyone here. You step closer to Laurel, and you notice his calculating eyes, the careful face he makes, fingers to chin, furrowing his brow, when he's weighing his options and planning ahead. He spots you observing him, and you hear his voice in your head. "Change of plans," he telegraphs. "We're staying with Ernog and the others." "Really?" you say. He nods. "Why did you change your mind?" you ask. "If the Aarakocra is telling the truth, then he can get all of us into the forest." "But what if he's lying? He killed lots of people." "The Aarakocra specifically didn't kill anyone. It sounds like he wasn't involved in the original accident. Plus, we don't have the luxury to cast judgment on what happened to the orcs if this is our big chance to get you and Maya home." "Oh," you say. You don't know what to believe. If you make it home because you sided with potentially bad people, then you don't know if you can live with that guilt later on. "But Ernog would never let them come." Laurel glances at you. "That's why we need to convince him." "What if the other orcs still don't want them to come?" "I believe Ernog has the ultimate say." "Laurel," you say, "I don't like this. I don't want to make them do something they don't want to do. That seems wrong." "It's all right. Just let me do the talking." The elven man has his head hung low, offering his bleeding arms to Ernog to get tied up. The Aarakocra stares up at Ernog and gently asks if he can treat the elven man's injuries first, but Ernog denies him, snatching his shield away. The young woman holds her hands together, waiting to be bound, eyes fixed to the ground. She's spoken the least so far, but only she seems proficient with a weapon. You're surprised that these are the people who killed so many orcs. You can still see the faint outlines of Mok and Maya lying low in the grasses. They seem safe for the time being, though you're not sure what would have happened if these strange people ran into them before you got here. Ernog finishes tying them up by their hands and feet. He commands them all to kneel, and they all obey without protest. He tosses all of their weapons and supplies in a pile far away. Laurel waves Ernog over again. As Ernog approaches, however, you can see irritation in his expression. "What is it?" he grumbles. "Is there anything you need help with? Bach and I are happy to assist." He shakes his head. "Go fetch Mok and Bella. They shouldn't be out here. Escort them back." Laurel nods. "Of course. Is there anything you need with these three?" He motions toward the strangers. Ernog stares into Laurel's eyes, leaning in a bit. From behind, you watch Laurel's shoulders stiffen. "I am aware of your stance, Baron. You've made your position very clear. I can handle them on my own." "I understand." "Good. Now find the two children." Laurel scratches his arm nervously. "All I will say, if you'll allow me, is my brother, my sister, and I will be staying if the Aarakocra comes with us. I will also teach Mok everything I know about magic. As I've stated, I believe the Aarakocra is crucial to our entry into the forest. I know you have to discuss with the others, but I hope you'll all consider things rationally." "I am aware." Ernog narrows his eyes, towering over Laurel, axe still in hand, and you feel the urge to pull Laurel away before he says anything more. "You have stated your case, Baron. Now I request that you leave this to us, as it is our business and our business alone." Laurel straightens his posture, pulling back his shoulders, but he's nowhere close to Ernog's height. You hear rustling in the grasses, and you spot Mok and Maya trekking towards you. You shake Laurel's arm. "Let's go back," you whisper. Laurel nods once, bowing his head. "Thank you for taking us into consideration. We'll be heading back now. He backs up, still staring at Ernog. As you finally break Laurel away from Ernog, Maya Lee and Mock catch up to you. Maya Lee rushes into your arms, and she breathes a heavy sigh of relief. Are you all right? You say. She nods, though she seems to be avoiding eye contact. Laurel appears frustrated, and he glances at Mock for a moment, still deep in contemplation. He bites his lip and mumbles quietly to himself. Mock keeps glancing back at his brother with a worried expression. Silently, the four of you march back to the cave. Maya Lee squeezes your hand tightly as you walk. There's a desolate look on her face. Mock keeps glancing at her. You look over your shoulder, and you spot the silhouettes of the four remaining figures. Ernog's commanding presence standing above the other three, kneeling helplessly. You bend down and mutter softly to Maya Lee. Are you sure you're fine? She meets your gaze, tears in her eyes. My wild magic went off again. Laurel stops in his tracks. He's been staring at the ground, hands in his pockets and dragging his feet along. He immediately turns to her, and then at Mock. Does that mean... Maya Lee nods. Mock knows now, she mumbles. Laurel sighs, rubbing his temple. It's all right, says Mock. She told me about the wild magic. He sounds almost proud of himself. I also learned something else. He reaches toward Maya Lee's head, plucking her hat off. Her magical disguise disappears. I also know Bella's an elf. Maya Lee lets out a short yelp, and she drops to the ground, hunched over in a ball, grabbing her head protectively. And before you can react, you watch Laurel's emotions instantly turn. Hey, Laurel shouts. He grabs Mock's shoulder, pressing his nails into his skin. You see this deep, boiling hatred on his face that you've witnessed twice now. Once when he killed Mr. Senos, and once when he maimed the innkeeper. Mock winces, and he tries to squirm away. But Laurel only tightens his grip. He rips the hat out of Mock's hand. His eyes are wild and unblinking as he stares at Mock. Do not ever take off her hat. His voice is low. Maya Lee is covering her ears and staring up at the rest of you, breathing erratically. Mock's mouth goes slack. I just... Since we all know, I thought... No, says Laurel. Never, ever touch her hat. I didn't mean... I just thought... Laurel, you say, resting a shaky hand on his shoulder. It's all right. He turns to you, the fury still in his eyes, and for a moment, you're back in your cage, bundled up in a ball, gazing at Mr. Senos' looming shadow, accosting you for your inadequacies. Laurel sighs loudly. He lets go of Mock and hands Maya Lee's hat back to her. She immediately slips it back on, and her disguise reappears, draping over her true form. The hat vanishes. Laurel plants his face into his hand, pinching the bridge of his nose. He curses under his breath. Mock kneels down next to Maya Lee. Sorry, he mutters. Maya Lee shakes her head, still covering her face with her arms. You put an arm around Maya Lee. Then you turn to Mock and pull him in as well. Bella needs us to keep her safe. She needs our help. He nods. I know. I wasn't trying to hurt her. You rub his back and you gaze down at Maya Lee. He didn't mean to do it. Maya Lee wipes her eyes. He's gonna tell Ernog. Laurel lifts his head from his hand. Mock shifts uncomfortably. I just think Ernog will know how to help if we tell him. Laurel steps up close again. Mock, he says, his voice now gentle. You see Mock tense up for a moment, looking nervously at him. I'm sorry I snapped at you just now. I panicked because I see Bella as my little sister. Mock only stares back at Laurel. Siblings are a funny thing, aren't they? You're always fighting, but in the end, you'd do anything for them. You want to support your brother too, right? You want to help him as well? Mock hesitates, but he nods. He has a lot on his plate, doesn't he? Yeah. His eyes dart at you anxiously. Laurel pats your shoulder. Bach and I are a lot like you and Ernog. But you know what I love about Bach? He smiles at you. I love that he can take care of himself. He's so good at handling things independently that sometimes he takes care of things for me, too. He turns to Mock again. I have this feeling that Ernog's counting on you to step up and help him. Do you want to do that? I can try. I know he wants me to do more, but I'm scared I'll mess up. I keep disappointing him. Well, you know what? We can start with something small. He takes Maya-Lee's hand. You can be responsible for Bella. You take care of her and make sure no one else knows about her. But, says Mock, but I don't want to keep a secret from Ernog. You're not keeping a secret, says Laurel. Think of it as taking on a personal responsibility. Bach's best trait is he can do something for me without telling me sometimes. Mock gazes at you admiringly, and you don't know what to do. You glance at Laurel, who's also staring at you with expectant eyes. Maya-Lee has pulled herself away from you, nodding along to everything Laurel's saying. You give in and nod as well. I see, says Mock. He scratches at his baby tusks, barely protruding out of his lip. I'll watch over Bella. And of course, she's our responsibility too, so all three of us will be taking care of her, right? We're starting small. Mock nods more readily now. Yeah, right. Laurel smiles, ruffling Mock's hair. That's great. Look at you, stepping up. My brother wants me to learn magic from you, too. I know, says Laurel. I'm more than happy to do that for you. Maybe I can show him what I'm learning from you? When I can control it better and I don't accidentally hurt him? That's a great idea, says Laurel. There's shuffling sounds ahead, and you squint to see Dura. She and her hunting party are staying low as they amble towards you, weapons in hand. Behind her, Rock is trotting along happily. You wave. She spots you and waves back. Dura's here, you say to the others. Laurel turns around and spots her as well. He takes his hand off Mock's shoulder, which causes a strange relief to wash over you. When she's within earshot, she points ahead and says, Ernog there? You nod. He wants to hold a meeting, says Laurel. The Everlight people are here. Everlight? Says Dura. Immediately her eyes harden. They back? Ernog has them tied up for now. There's a half-elf, a human, and an Aarakocra. New people this time, Dura murmurs. Yes, says Laurel. Dura tightens her grip and announces back to the other hunters in Orcish. Immediately, there's quiet chatter amongst them as their faces contort with anger. We go to them now, says Dura. She begins to set off again. Wait, says Laurel. She stops and turns back to him, a bit puzzled. I don't want to say too much. I'm not here to convince you either way. I know you have some very awful history with them, but at least from what I saw back there, they want to help. From an outsider's perspective, I think the Aarakocra can help you enter the forest. Ernog has been telling me your plans. She narrows her eyes at him. We will see. Stay safe. Cave that way. She points behind her, then nods and continues on. The other hunters crawl past you. One of them ruffles Mock's hair. Soon they disappear into the foliage. The sun is now directly overhead, baking your skin. You continue for a few minutes before Laurel once again stops in his tracks. So, he says, we can either go back to the cave or we can watch this meeting. What do you guys prefer? Are we allowed to watch? Asks Mock. Well, no, but if you want to start taking on bigger responsibilities, Mock, you should also know what the adults are thinking, right? Oh, says Mock. You've been uncomfortable with Laurel's meddling this entire time, but now he's fully crossed a line. You tap Laurel's shoulder. Maybe we go back? I want to go see, says Maya Lee. So, 2 votes in favor of watching, 1 vote against. Mock, you can either tie it or we go watch. I don't want to get in trouble. We'll stay hidden. No one else will know. Mock glances at you, and you shake your head. I want to watch, says Mock. All right then, says Laurel, clapping his hands together. He peers at you dismissively. Let's stay low and quiet. The 4 of you are crawling on your hands and knees, going in a roundabout manner so you don't run into anyone. You hear light rustling in the grasses as more orcs pass by and make their way to Ernog and the Everlight followers, but no one seems to notice you. They're all focused on getting to the destination as rapidly as possible. As you crawl, you tug on Laurel's shirt. You tap your temple, a motion that you wish to speak with him telepathically. He nods, and you soon hear his voice in your head. Something wrong? Laurel, I don't want to get in the orc's way. I don't like making Mock think these kind of things. It's like you're putting ideas in his head. You hear him sigh. I know what I'm doing. I don't think it's right to do that. I don't think I've said anything wrong, and Mock does need to take more responsibility. That's what I'm here to help teach him. But we can't risk anyone else knowing about Maya Lee. It's bad enough that Mock knows. I don't think Mock knowing is bad. I don't think Ernog knowing is bad too. They're nice people. I know they're nice, and I know you care about all of these people. I care too. But at the end of the day, we have to watch over ourselves and prioritize our own safety. I'm doing this for all of us. I'm thinking about Maya Lee, and I'm thinking about you. Immediately you're hit with guilt. Of course Laurel is doing all of this for you. Once again, he's doing everything for your sake. You, the ultimate person to blame. You, this deadweight who selfishly pines to see your mother again, while Mock will never see his father again. I'm sorry, you say. Why are you apologizing? You're always thinking about helping us. He looks at you, smiling politely. Listen, Bach. I'm doing this for you because I want to. I made a decision back in New Everlon, one that I can't turn back on. You're my biggest priority. I will do anything to make sure you see your family again. If not for you, he would be home with his own family. He wouldn't be making these difficult decisions, doing the dirty work for you. I'm sorry, you say again. You don't have to keep apologizing. I've accepted that this is how it is. You begin to hear a commotion ahead now, and you recognize a few voices in the mix. Soon, you see the orcs gathered in a circle, having a heated discussion. Ernog stands at the center, gesturing with his arms at all of them as he makes his speech. Repeatedly, he points back to the elven man, who is now leaning against the human woman, breathing heavily, the blood still dripping down his arm. You lie on your stomach, listening carefully. Your hands and knees are sore from the rough terrain. The grass scratches against your torso and neck. Maya Lee wraps her arms around your bicep. It's hot, and you're sweaty, and you don't want to be here. You hear Mock whispering at Laurel, presumably translating some of the orcs' discussion points. You catch a few things here and there, but you're having trouble following along. There are so many names, so much discussion and disagreements. You shouldn't be listening anyway. Ernog said this isn't your business. You instead focus your attention on Laurel. You don't know if he's always been like this or if you turned him into this. He scratches his chin, forming that conniving, calculating face again. And you wonder just how far he's willing to go for your sake.